Beside them, Jik and Seely looked at their teacher and grandfather with some unfamiliarity. Why did this old man who was worthy of respect suddenly become a little unfamiliar at this moment? His Majesty had only expressed his opinion. Why did their teacher/grandfather suddenly seem to have been provoked and become extreme? Zhou smiled and said, "Your Excellency, don't be angry. This emperor has yet to finish my sentence. Your Excellency, do you feel that you're not as concentrated as before when forging divine artifacts recently? Do you feel that the current you is very different from the previous you? Do you feel that, in some aspects, the current you is even inferior to the previous you? Do you feel that you're improving less frequently than when you were weak? Do you even feel that you're more mediocre than before?" Orofa couldn't help but widen his eyes when Zhou Manage started talking. The more Zhou Manage spoke, the more shocked he became. When he reached the end, he fell silent. Seeing this, Zhou Manage smiled and said, "Your Excellency seems to have noticed it. You have the precious wealth, status, power, and fame that countless life forms dream of. In the eyes of other living beings, you are already standing at the end of their dreams. However, it is precisely because of these things that you have begun to fall into ease. To put it bluntly, you have already been dragged down by this wealth and are no longer as pure as before. Pureness might not be important to other things, but it's very important to forging skills. In fact, if you want to reach the peak of your skills, pure success is one of the most important determinants of your skills. Your Excellency Orofa, you have the talent of a master god tier. In fact, you already have the admission ticket to the door of the creator of artifacts. However, if you're too attached to the flowers and plants on the road, the admission ticket might expire and be invalid." Orofa opened his mouth wide and looked at Zhou in a daze. At this moment, Zhou in his eyes seemed to have become the figure of his teacher. The words of that time seemed to resound in his ears again. "Disciple, put it down. What you care about has become a shackle to imprison you." Orofa originally thought that his teacher was saying that he was too concerned about pursuing the creator of artifacts and had neglected whether his talent was enough to pursue this dream. From the looks of it, his teacher probably didn't mean that at all. It was just like what Your Excellency, the common people's regal, had said. What he cared about was the status, power, fame, identity, and resources he had in the Sun Divine Court. These things had made him who he was today and also made he feel at ease and lazy, allowing these things to imprison him. After a long silence, Orofa smiled bitterly and said, "How could I not know about these things? However, knowing is one thing, being able to walk out of it is another. Do I have to give up everything I have in front of me and only continue to pursue the creator of artifacts?" Zhou Manage said, "That depends on Your Excellency Orofa's choice. Besides, you don't have to give up everything. In addition, this emperor can remind you that if you really become the creator of artifacts, you will only have much more than what you have now. If you're troubled by the difficulties and don't become the creator of artifacts, you're actually still a true god-tier divine artifact forger. You can actually get back what you lost. Let's see if Your Excellency dares to make this choice." When Orofa heard this, a conflicted expression immediately appeared on his face. Zhou Manage looked at him for a long time without making a decision. He finally revealed his trump card and his ultimate goal for saying so much. "Your Excellency Orofa, join this Emperor's blazing sun empire. If Your Excellency Orofa is willing to join this Emperor's blazing sun empire, this Emperor guarantees that you will become the creator of artifacts in the future." Zhou Manage said, "Are you serious, Your Excellency?" Orofa was stunned for a moment before saying in disbelief, "Even the legendary Supreme God realm might not guarantee that a true god-tier divine artifact forger could turn into a creator of artifacts in the myriad worlds. That was because master god-tiers were all gods who had walked their own nomological path. Every master god-tier's nomological path was unique. Hence, it was very difficult for true gods to turn into master gods with the help of other god spirits. He could only rely on himself on this path. Therefore, he found Zhou Manage's words unbelievable. Could this common people's regal be able to do this? However, judging from how the Supreme will favored this lord, it did seem possible. His heart immediately stirred upon thinking of this. This emperor's words are absolutely true. Zhou Manage smiled. What a joke. He had already promised the War Master God to help them advance to the Supreme God realm in the future. He had already agreed to this ridiculous request. Why would he be afraid of a request from a creator of artifacts who had advanced to the level of a Master God tier? He could just find a Master God tier creator of artifacts and kill him. He could just give him the Book of the God Spirit. Then I'm willing to join His Majesty's Blazing Sun Empire. After hearing Zhou Manage's words, Orofa thought for a long time before finally agreeing. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief after making this decision. He felt like he had let go of something. At this moment, Zhou Manage grinned and said, "There's no hurry. First, settle your matters in the Sun Divine Court before coming to this emperor to take office." "Oh yes, this is your reward." Zhou Manage threw a world ring over. After Orofa received it, his divine sense entered it and discovered that not only was there a complete set of true God-tier advanced grade divine artifacts, there were also a total of 100 sets of true God-tier divine artifacts forging blueprints. At this moment, even a true God-tier divine artifact forger like Orofa, who came from a top lord faction like the Sun Divine Court, was stunned. Regardless of whether it was the 6 true God-tier divine artifacts or the 100 forging blueprints of the true God-tier divine artifacts, they were not a small sum to him. He did not expect to receive such a generous gift as soon as he joined the Blazing Sun Empire. The nervousness and uneasiness in Orofa's heart because he was about to leave the Sun Divine Court abruptly dissipated a lot. Not only because of the true God-tier divine artifacts and the forging blueprints, but also because of the strength and future potential of the Blazing Sun Empire. "Thank you, Your Holiness," Orofa said respectfully. Zhou Manage nodded. Then, they chatted for a while before Orofa bade farewell and left. He wanted to return to the Sun Divine Court and settle the procedures for resignation. "Your Majesty, will my instructor be all right?" Jik could not help but worry. Seely, who was beside him, had the same worried expression. "Don't worry. This emperor has already calculated that he will return safely." Zhou Manage smiled. Jik and Seely heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, in the ruins of the original Elven Empire, Zhou and the resurrected Nadia were standing in the ruins of the Imperial Palace. In front of them was a tombstone that had just been built. It was Elizariel's cenotaph. Zhou stood behind Nadia, who had just been resurrected, and looked at the former capital of the original Elven Empire. The once glorious and noble Imperial Palace had already turned into ruins, and all the treasures and wealth inside had been plundered. Even the throne that Elizariel had once sat on had been divided into several parts and forcefully shattered and taken away by the fleeing subjects of the original Elven Empire. He looked towards the east. The elven mother tree that had once been as huge as the sky had also disappeared at this moment, leaving behind a terrifying deep pit that covered an area of hundreds of square kilometers and looked like an unfathomable abyss. It hasn't been long. Things have really changed. War can allow a country to accumulate wealth by leaps and bounds. It can also make a country disappear in a few days. Zhou shook his head silently. At the same time, he quietly felt the Lord laws circulating in his heart. He sensed it for a long time before looking at Nadia in front of him. At this moment, Nadia was kneeling in front of Elizariel's cenotaph in silence. No one knew what she was thinking. "Elizariel, oh Elizariel. It's already better than many emperors for you to have such a heroic general loyal to you in your life," Zhou thought to himself as he looked at Nadia's back. At this moment, Nadia moved slightly. Then, she turned around and bowed to Zhou. "Thank you, Your Excellency, for bringing me here to see Her Majesty one last time," he said. His voice was a little low, and it was no longer as lively and relaxed as Zhou remembered. "Why are you saying this even though we have his friendship?" Zhou smiled. Then he said seriously, "For the sake of the Empire and its people, Elizariel had already made up her mind. I felt that even if I could reverse time to revive he, the revived Elizariel would probably still choose to commit suicide again. So I didn't revive him. I understand, Your Excellency. Nadia nodded. Then he looked at Elizariel's grave and said in a low voice, You're right. If you revive he without his consent, he might commit suicide again. Her Majesty Elizariel is such an emperor. Zhou nodded. Then the two of them stayed here for a while before leaving together. On the way back, Nadia suddenly looked at Zhou and said, Your Excellency, now that the original Elven Empire has been destroyed and Her Majesty Elizariel has passed away, I no longer have a country to return to. I wonder if Your Excellency is willing to take in a countryless elf like me. Nadia, Zhou interrupted her and said with a smile, I need you. Come help me. Nadia was stunned for a moment before she nodded firmly. She knew that her meager strength was actually useless to Zhou. He only said these words to make herself feel more comfortable joining the Blazing Sun Empire. He didn't need to do this at all with his strength and status. However, he still put away all to help her. It was obvious how much he valued her. Even if the relationship between the two of them was just a chance encounter in the time ruins. Recalling what this Your Excellency had done for her in the past, Nadia couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Zhou had done too much for her. She was alone and had nothing to repay him with. She could only repay him, like how she worked for Elizariel with her life. She would have no regrets even if she died. It was a pity that the other party already had a family. Otherwise, I could still. As soon as this thought appeared, Nadia, who was panicking, dismissed it. A moment later, in the Blazing Sun imperial capital. After Zhou returned with Nadia, he got someone to arrange her residence while he returned to the shrine. After some thought, he opened the friend list on his personal terminal and opened a friend's video call. In less than 10 seconds, the other party took it. A purple behemoth emperor exuding a domineering aura was in the video with an extremely respectful expression. It was the emperor of the behemoth divine kingdom, Collier. Collier greets Your Majesty. Collier bowed. Collier, have you found the true God-tier master-servant territory contract? Zhou asked. There's already news. We've already sent our subordinates to buy it. The true God-tier master-servant territory contract will be sent over tomorrow at the earliest. Collier immediately said. Tomorrow. Zhou stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before nodding. All right, after the master-servant territory contract is delivered tomorrow, our two countries will immediately form a contract and become master-subordinate territorial relations, and the behemoth divine kingdom will be the emperor's subordinate divine kingdom. Of course. Collier had mixed feelings, but he said respectfully on the surface. Prepare yourself. Once the contract is formed tomorrow, this emperor will let you fight with the empire's army. Zhou suddenly said. Already? Collier was shocked. Wasn't it a little too rushed to combat as soon as they formed a contract? The first stage of the Lord of the Races event is only 3 days in total. How long do you want to drag it out? Zhou glanced at him and said indifferently, Don't use the concept of time to define the Lord of all races in front of you. Be careful not to fall asleep and wake up to find that your behemoth divine kingdom has been destroyed for hundreds of years. Zhou glanced at him and said indifferently, Don't use the concept of time to define the Lord of all races in front of you. Be careful not to fall asleep and wake up to find that your behemoth divine kingdom has been destroyed for hundreds of years. I understand. I will never make such a mistake, Collier hurriedly said. He naturally knew that Zhou was right. With the support of the Supreme Will, the growth of the lords was very fast, far exceeding the imagination of the local lords in this Lord of all races contest after all. In the past, there were examples of kingdoms and even empires being born in such a short period of time. However, there would definitely not be as many examples as there were now. The Supreme Will was naturally using the activities and rewards he had set up to add fuel to the fire. Zhou did not say anything when he saw this. Instead, he grinned faintly and said, You have to be prepared. Currently, even though there are many lord factions and even race factions that have submitted to this emperor, there has never been a case of a divine kingdom lord faction coming to submit. You could be said to be the first person to do such a thing. You're under a lot of pressure. In addition, the enemies this emperor will deal with tomorrow are not simple either. You have to do your best to make preparations. Otherwise, once there are serious casualties or something like that, although this emperor will revive you all equally, you will be recorded in the credit book. Collier's heart trembled, and he agreed heavily. I will do my best to prepare. Zhou nodded. Then, he didn't say anything else and hung up the video call before looking into the distance and revealed a faint smile. The various races in the outside world should soon know that my blazing sun empire has 3 top-notch master god-tier existences protecting it. In addition, after tomorrow, information of the behemoth divine kingdom choosing to join me will spread. The combination of the two is enough to cause a stunning storm among the myriad races in the world. It will let all the lords and races know that this era has shifted because of me as the lord of all races. Before this, many top-notch lord factions and race factions were wavering in the new and old eras, not knowing which position to choose. Only some weak races and lords have joined me until now. Even though there are many of them, they are far from qualitative change. They can't help me much for the time being. After tomorrow, there should be some top factions willing to stand on my side. Zhou muttered to himself. His expression was calm as usual. In fact, he was already burning with ambition. He wanted to rely on his own strength to unite many lords and races to overturn this era of top-notch bloodline races reigning supreme. As for relying on his own strength to become enemies with the myriad worlds, no lord would have such thoughts. Of course, if he continued to become stronger, it wasn't impossible for he to become enemies with all the races in the world alone. Why did he have to choose the most difficult path when he could easily reach the finish line? The matter of becoming stronger could be done after reaching the end point. Then, he came to the Gate of Summoning. After carefully looking at the construction information of the Gate of Summoning, he quickly discovered the Lord Talon information of the original Dragon Abyss. Building name: Original Dragon Abyss. Construction level: Black Iron Tier Elementary Grade. Construction effect: you can summon 1 green Bronze Tier Elementary Grade Pure-Blooded Dragon every day from the original Dragon Abyss and become a subject under the Lord. There is a 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade: 10,000 units of wood, 10,000 units of fine sand, 10,000 units of metal, 10,000 units of stone, 1,000 black iron tier mist core, 100 basic elemental gems. Territory upgraded to black iron tier intermediate grade. Prompt: do you want to summon immediately? Zhou couldn't help but click his tongue after reading it. The strength of this Lord Talent was a little heaven-defying. Summoning a pure-blooded dragon every day? Wasn't this equivalent to having 1 Nazario a day? Zhou knew very well how strong Nazario was at the early stage. It could even be said that if not for Nazario being his strongest combatant in the early stages, even if he could reach his current level, he would definitely be much slower. As for the 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon, there was no need to mention it. It was no exaggeration to say that a black iron tier elementary grade legendary dragon was equivalent to 100 black iron tier Nazarios. If someone is lucky enough to summon a legendary dragon on the first day of the lordship, then even if I have the combination of the King of Lutes and Nazario, I might still be able to defeat them. Zhou sighed. Fortunately, he didn't. Then, his gaze landed on the building upgrade conditions. It had to be said that the requirements for upgrading this building were quite ridiculous. Not only did he need a lot of materials, he had just advanced from Black Iron Tier Elementary Grade to Black Iron Tier Advanced Grade, and he was already asking for basic elemental gemstones? Even a top-notch lord with the original Dragon Abyss would not be able to accumulate so many upgrade resources in a long time, right? He shook his head and then threw in 40,000 units of basic resources, 10,000 Black Iron Tier Mist Cores, and 100 basic elemental gems. A dark purple light came from the Gate of Summoning. Then, the information of the buildings in the original Dragon Abyss was updated. Building name: Original Dragon Abyss. Construction level: Black Iron Tier Intermediate Grade. Construction effect: you can summon 2 green Bronze Tier Intermediate Grade Pure-Blooded Dragons from the original Dragon Abyss every day and become a subject under the Lord. There is a 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade: 50,000 units of wood, 50,000 units of fine sand, 50,000 units of metal, 50,000 units of stone, 5,000 black iron tier mist core, 500 basic elemental gems. Territory upgraded to black iron tier advanced grade. Prompt: do you want to summon immediately? Zhou still did not select to summon and continued to spend resources to level up. Words soon appeared. After 2 more upgrades, he had upgraded the original Dragon Abyss to the green Bronze Tier Elementary Grade. Building name: Original Dragon Abyss. Construction level: Green Bronze Tier Elementary Grade. Construction effect: you can summon 3 green Bronze Tier Elementary Grade Pure-Blooded Dragons and 1 white Silver Tier Elementary Grade Pure-Blooded Dragon from the original Dragon Abyss every day to become a subject under the Lord. There is a 2% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade: 1 million units of wood, 1 million units of fine sand, 1 million units of metal, 1 million units of stone, 100,000 black iron tier mist core, 10,000 basic elemental gems. Territory upgraded to green Bronze Tier Intermediate Grade. Prompt: do you want to summon immediately? Zhou couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The might of the original Dragon Abyss had truly shocked him. Without any hesitation, he continued to select to upgrade. A large number of resources were quickly consumed. After more than an hour, he finally advanced the original Dragon Abyss to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. At this level, the original Dragon Abyss could no longer proceed to advance due to the limitations of its territory. Only then did Zhou look at its latest establishing information. Building name: Original Dragon Abyss. Construction level: Mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. Construction effect: every day, you can summon 60 million green Bronze Tier Intermediate Grade Dragons, 6 million white Silver Tier Intermediate Grade Dragons, 600,000 yellow Gold Tier Intermediate Dragons from the original Dragon Abyss. 6 high-tier deity-level dragon gods will become subjects under the Lord. There is an 11% chance of summoning legendary dragons. Construction upgrade: 1,000 trillion units of wood, 1,000 trillion units of fine sand, 1,000 trillion units of metal, 1,000 trillion units of stone, 1 billion intermediate deity-level divine crystals, 1 billion basic elemental gems. Prompt: do you want to summon immediately? After reading it, Zhou fell silent. He let out a long breath following a long while. Summoning more than 60 million pure-blooded dragons in a day. I've learned something new. It hasn't been long since I summoned all the dragons in the original Dragon Abyss. This Lord talent was so ridiculous that Zhou began to worry if there were so many pure-blooded dragons in the original Dragon Abyss. With the methods of the Supreme Will, such a thing shouldn't happen. Zhou shook his head and did not think too much about it. He chanted the summoning in his heart. At the same time, he ordered the original Dragon Abyss to transfer all the 60 million pure-blooded dragons summoned to the inner world of Cosmos Emperor in his territory. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, a large number of pure-blooded dragons descended into the Cosmos Emperor's inner world. Wind Dragon, Fire Dragon, Emerald Dragon, Lava Dragon, Shadow Dragon, Undead Dragon, Mountain Dragon, Light Spirit Dragon, Wind Thunder Dragon, Formless Dragon, Fierce Claw Dragon, Dark Dragon, Green Bronze Tier Dragon. All kinds of pure-blooded dragons descended into this boundless space. There were more than 6,000 of them, looking quite spectacular and shocking. Among the many pure-blooded dragons, a special dragon was quite eye-catching among them. This dragon was more than 100 light-years tall and majestic. He was silver-white in color, and there was a silver holy crown on his head. His body was surrounded by time phantoms. The time phantoms were like a supreme divine robe draped over his body. On it, there was a faint illusory scene of the past and future of various worlds. An aura that Zhou was familiar with appeared on his body. Zhou saw the dragon through the internal world projection of the spaceship. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows as his eyes revealed a look of shock. Time Divine Dragon? Kyoto? What kind of luck is this? How did I summon this big shot on my first try? He muttered to himself. Zhou looked at the silver-white legendary dragon with shock in his eyes. This legendary dragon Big Shot was considered a legendary existence even among the legendary dragons. It was said that not only was the other party knowledgeable, he could also see through the future of life forms. What he loved the most was to travel through the various timelines and see the evolution of the world's life forms in each timeline. From there, he could comprehend the laws of time. Many legendary dragons had to show their respect to Kyoto. Moreover, they had more or less received the favor of the Time Divine Dragon during their growth. Among the legendary dragons, only the original dragon, the yellow gold sacred dragon god, and a few other top legendary dragons could suppress the other party in terms of status. Just as Zhou was in shock, the Time Divine Dragon in the Cosmos Emperor's inner world glanced in Zhou's direction before disappearing. The next second, he appeared in front of Zhou. Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, greets Your Excellency Common People's Regal. Kyoto chuckled. Your Excellency Kyoto. Zhou returned the greeting politely. The Kyoto in front of him was only at the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. This was naturally not the other party's true strength, but was probably because he wanted to adapt to the rules of the original Dragon Abyss that this big shot specially reduced his strength to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. If the other party wanted to recover the strength of a Master God tier at his peak, he could probably do it with a thought. At this moment, Kyoto spoke again. I traveled through time and came here for one matter. I was entrusted by a good friend who would like me to write a book for Your Majesty, an autobiography, and then keep it in his library. Oh, Zhou was a little curious. May I know who is Your Excellency's good friend? He claims to be the god of books. His greatest hobby is to write, read, and collect books. Kyoto smiled and said, I met him by chance and became good friends with him. He specially instructed me that if you're unwilling, he is also able to write an autobiographical book about you, Regal, by collecting information and myths. I wonder what does Your Excellency Regal think about that? By the way, my good friend also said that if Your Majesty is willing, after the book is completed, he will give you a gift. Zhou did not hesitate when he heard that. He smiled and said, It's not impossible to write a book as long as you don't pry into my privacy. However, this is my autobiography after all. I want to take a look after the book is completed. I want to delete it if there's anything inappropriate. This is Your Excellency's right, Kyoto said with a smile. Most of the content recorded in your autobiography is about your personal experience and some interviews. There won't be any privacy that you don't want to see. In that case, I have no objections. Zhou nodded. It was nothing more than a book that recorded his experiences. It was no big deal. I'll have to trouble you for a while in the future. If there's a need, I can use my old bones to fight for Your Excellency. Kyoto smiled. That's great. Zhou smiled and said, I'll have to rely on Your Excellency to take care of me in the future. This Your Excellency should be a top-notch Master God tier existence who was a Master God tier advanced grade. Even though they weren't the top 10 Master God tiers, they were considered one of the best Master God tiers apart from the top 10 Master God tier experts. With Your Excellency by his side, Zhou felt extremely safe. After that, he opened the door to the army and incorporated the 60 million pure-blooded dragons, including Kyoto, into the Dragon God Army. As the Dragon God Army had never had a true god expert, in addition to the fact that they were all pure-blooded dragons, there were very few of them. Therefore, they had always been the weakest army under him. Now, with the addition of more than 60 million pure-blooded dragons and the Master God tier Kyoto, the Dragon God army's strength was no longer inferior to the Blazing Sun army. Then, he thought for a moment and said, "Your Excellency Kyoto, there are still 2 to 3 hours left today. I plan to bring my troops out to train and conquer a few territories. Would Your Excellency like to come along?" The main reason was that he and the insight defection of the Star Alliance masters under him had yet to be used. He wanted to use the remaining time to instigate the insight defection. Sure, Kyoto smiled and nodded. He would show his point of view to His Majesty since he wanted to perceive he abilities. In that case, he would show it to this regal. He looked at the regal and felt the rich light sacred dragon bloodline and the aura of the other legendary dragons. He sighed inwardly. This regal really had a deep relationship with the dragons. It was actually related to so many legendary dragons. In the current era of the Lord of all races, it was unknown if this relationship was good or bad. He could take this opportunity to follow this regal and see his prospect and the fate of the myriad worlds. Kyoto, who walked the law of time and cultivated the law of fate at the same time, was very curious about Zhou-Zhou's fate and future. Zhou-Zhou quickly set off with the army. The number of troops and god spirits that Bai Yun and the others had taken away only accounted for half of the total number of troops and god spirits under him. Therefore, half of them were left behind in the Blazing Sun Empire to be in charge of going out to fight and protect the territory. However, it was only half of them. There were a total of 500 trillion soldiers, more than 1 million god spirits, and more than 700 true god tiers. In addition, Bai Yun's main body was taking the Eternal Mothership to Cerulean Planet, and her clone was following Zhou-Zhou through the Gate of Summoning. Now that Bai Yun was already a true god tier expert, it was easy for her to create a low-tier deity-level elementary grade clone that could not last long. As for the Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, even though he was mentally prepared, he could not help but exclaim in his heart when he saw Zhou-Zhou's army. This number of troops and god spirits was too ridiculous. Even some Divine Kingdom Lord factions might not have so many soldiers and god spirits. It was hard to imagine that this was a force that lords of all races could have at this stage. However, it was precisely because of this that this human lord in front of him had made a name for himself as the common people's regal. There were only wrong names and no wrong titles. Not to mention the title of regal personally given by the Supreme Will. Kyoto pondered for a few seconds. Then he saw a silver light flash on his body. He had turned into an old man in a silver divine robe. He took out a book and a pen out of thin air and commenced to write on the book. Zhou-Zhou was slightly surprised to perceive this. It started just like that? He didn't mind and continued doing whatever he wanted. "Your Majesty," Luo Shang, who had already become a true god-tier expert, strolled up to Zhou-Zhou and uttered respectfully, "We still have about 56 seconds before we reach the high-level Scarlet Empire, Blue Dew Empire, which is adjacent to our territory." High-level Scarlet Empire? Zhou-Zhou raised his brows slightly and asked in confusion, "Was there such a high-level Scarlet Empire around our territory in the past? Why don't I have any impression of it?" As the ruler of a country, he knew very well who the countries around his country were. However, he had no impression of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire at all. "Your Majesty, this high-level Scarlet Empire was born during the King of 10,000 Kings event, and it's not the only one. There are many such high-level Scarlet Empires, and their territories are all connected to our Blazing Sun Empire. The reason why so many Scarlet forces could rise so quickly is mainly because they were born from a calamity like the calamity of the myriad races. The Scarlet invasion forces that came from the Crimson Great Cosmos left a large number of resources and Scarlet remnant forces that couldn't retreat in time before they left the High Continent. It was these forces that formed the new Scarlet Lords. And, originally, most of the lords around our territory retreated in advance to find new territories because they were afraid of us and were afraid that we would invade them. Even though we tried our best to occupy the ownerless areas that they left behind, there were still some areas that we couldn't occupy in time. These Scarlet Lord forces took advantage of the situation and occupied these ownerless areas to establish a new Scarlet Lord force. Luo Shang explained. "I see. Zhou came to a realization. Then he smiled. The other Lord factions are so afraid of us that they fled. When these Scarlet factions saw this situation, not only did they stay far away from me, but they actually dared to occupy those ownerless areas and dominate under my nose. You're really bold. Zhou shook his head. Your Majesty, even though these ownerless areas are abandoned, there are still a large number of buildings without blueprints on them. As long as these buildings are placed in the building blueprint, they will recover their functions and can be used directly. This is indeed a great temptation for some Scarlet Lords who don't have a kingdom or territories. In this era, there are many lords who are bold. Luo Sheng smiled. In this era where the Lord of all races, the Supreme Will, and the Crimson Overlord were enemies, those who were timid would not dare to be lords. Anyone who had been a lord for a long time would be very bold. That makes sense also. Zhou was speechless. Then he said, in that case, let's destroy these fellows who have occupied our territory and subdue our territory. Those ownerless regions had appeared because of him and the Blazing Sun Empire. In Zhou's eyes, they were left to him by the lords of the people of foreign races who had retreated because they were afraid of him. How could he allow his territory to be occupied by Scarlet Fog monsters? US had been chased away by him. How could he tolerate this? Yes, Your Majesty, Luo Sheng said solemnly. He shared the same thoughts as Zhou. That was to never allow the Blazing Sun Empire's territory to be contaminated by external enemies. The Cosmos Emperor had already arrived at the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. At Luo Sheng's order, all the soldiers, heroes, and god spirits flew out of Cosmos Emperor and stood in the sky, looking down at the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Nearly 50 billion soldiers, 1 million god spirits, and more than 700 true god tiers stood in the sky, casting a huge shadow on the territory of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Zhou observed the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire below. After a few seconds, he raised his eyebrows slightly and clicked his tongue in wonder. It seems that they're not all fools who only know how to occupy territory. They still know to guard against us. After hearing Zhou's words, Luo Sheng also looked down at the territory of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. When he saw the situation inside, he was immediately shocked. He said in disbelief, "Why are there so many Scarlet soldiers and Scarlet god spirits? Did they join forces?" "I think so." Zhou nodded and looked for a while before saying, "There are about 300 trillion Scarlet soldiers, 1.5 million Scarlet god spirits, and more than 300 true god tiers. At least 100,000 Scarlet Lord forces have gathered here, and there's no lack of Scarlet Empire tier Lord forces. It's hard for them to gather so many Scarlet soldiers and Scarlet god spirits." He clicked his tongue in wonder. With so many Scarlet soldiers and true god tiers, they could fight against a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. He originally thought that this trip was just an ordinary insight defection activity. He didn't expect to meet a good opponent. Good. The more the merrier. The more you come, the more satisfying it will be for me, the 10,000 Spirit Saint. How did they react so quickly? How did they know that we would come to our door first and set up our troops here in advance? Luo Sheng was a little surprised. Your Excellency is most likely to attack the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire first because the Scarlet Empire closest to the Blazing Sun Empire's borders. In addition, the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's king is the strongest Scarlet True God tier among them. So he has the authority to gather all the Scarlet soldiers and god spirits here. Kyoto's eyes flashed with the light of the law of time. Luo Sheng nodded in realization. At this moment, the Scarlet Army below also discovered the Blazing Sun Army that was moving unhindered in the sky. The Blazing Sun Empire is here. This is much more terrifying than our military strength. There are so many god spirits and true god tiers. It looks like we can't defeat them. Run. If we stay here, we'll die. A bunch of idiots. Those who dare to say that they want to escape will be killed without mercy. When the Scarlet Army below noticed the Blazing Sun Empire's army and god spirits, most of them immediately panicked. Even though the military strength of both sides was not much different at this moment, the Blazing Sun Empire and the Common People's Regal were famous. Even the Scarlet invading army led by an existence like AUS had been defeated by them. These little armies still had some self-awareness. They knew that even if both sides had similar military strength, it would be very difficult for them to defeat the other party. At this moment, the ruler of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire, True God Blue Dew Scarlet, had spoken. The Blue Dew True God Tier's true form was formed from the Blue Dew True Water of the elemental realm. It looked completely blue, but its eyes were scarlet. He looked at the flustered Red Army and stated coldly, "Where can you run to? We only have one way out now, and that is to kill our way out. All Scarlet soldiers, Scarlet heroes, Scarlet God spirits, and Scarlet True God Tier. On my command, attack with me," he shouted at the end. Then, he was the first to charge towards the army of the Blazing Sun Empire. Countless Scarlet True God Tiers, Scarlet God spirits, and Scarlet soldiers followed closely behind. Zhou nodded his head and activated the 10,000 Spirit Saint the moment they exchanged blows. Prompt: you have activated your mythical tier, unique Lord talent. 10,000 Spirit Saint. All spirits see you as a supreme saint and long to follow you. Lord talent notification 1. A total of 351,568,568 Black Iron Tier Scarlet Soldiers. 217,501,107,500 Green Bronze Tier Scarlet Soldiers. 165,500,124,738 White Silver Tier Scarlet Soldiers. 114,352,503 Legendary Tier Scarlet Soldiers. 861,503 Low Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Spirits. 522,306 Mid-Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Spirits. 151,250 High-Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Followers. And 150,000 High-Tier True God Followers. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. The 10,000 Spirit Saint had directly incited 1,565,250,160,540 Red Soldiers, 1,535,059 Scarlet God Spirits, and 151 True God Tiers. Now, the number of troops under him had already reached 1,148,774.5,058.13,003,446 soldiers. 3,575,525 God Spirits, and 1,713 True God Tiers. My troops have officially broken through the quadrillion level. Zhou was excited. On the battlefield, the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire led more than 3 trillion Scarlet Alliance troops, and there was an internal strife in an instant. Half of the Scarlet soldiers, the Scarlet God Spirit, and the Scarlet True God Tier suddenly turned around and attacked their comrades with a fierce and fanatical expression and were caught off guard. More than 20 trillion Scarlet Soldier God Spirits were either dead or injured. This internal strife directly reduced the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's available military strength to more than 120 trillion. On the other hand, the Blazing Sun Empire's combat strength had reached an astonishing 600 trillion. Coupled with the internal tension caused by the internal strife, the soldiers of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's alliance army began to distrust their comrades. Their overall combat strength had decreased by more than 50%. On the other hand, the morale of the Blazing Sun Empire's army was rising. The situation on the battlefield instantly leaned towards the Blazing Sun Empire. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the Blazing Sun Empire's victory was already set in stone. What followed was just a matter of time. When True God Tier Blue Dew saw the obvious difference in morale, despair flashed across his eyes. Why were they at such a huge disadvantage when the war had just begun? Could this be the terrifying aspect of the common people's regal and the Blazing Sun Empire? At this moment, Scarlet True God Tier Blue Dew and the other Scarlet True God Tier suddenly understood why AUS had lost to this human lord despite having such a terrifying army. However, Scarlet True God Tier Blue Dew quickly realized that his despair had only just begun. As soon as the soldiers of both sides came into contact, The yellow talisman Dao soldiers and forbidden mages of the Blazing Sun Empire quickly displayed their superb combat strength that far exceeded the Empire tier soldier types. They directly suppressed the soldiers of the Scarlet Empire's allied army on the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's side. Seeing this, Blue Dew and Scarlet True God tier felt even more despair. If the Scarlet Alliance army still had a 10% chance of winning, after the Blazing Sun Empire soldiers displayed their superpowers, the probability of them winning was 0%. Half an hour later, peace returned to the battlefield. The Blue Dew Scarlet Empire was completely wiped out. The Blazing Sun Empire's army won a complete victory and began to clean up the battlefield. What a crushing war! Kyoto shook his head. The difference was too great and he had yet to make a move. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the soldiers in the distance were carrying the corpses of the dead soldiers and flying towards Cosmos Emperor. Your Majesty, what are they doing? Kyoto felt that he could take action in this aspect, so he pointed at them and said, "There's a resurrection altar on Cosmos Emperor. They brought the dead soldiers to revive." Zhou took a look and shook his head with a smile. These guys fight like lunatics. They clearly have free revival opportunities, but they still died more than twice. It's to the extent that they have to use the resurrection altar to revive. Resurrection altar? Kyoto thought for a moment and said, "Is it the resurrection altar created by Your Excellency Tritis?" "That's right." Zhou nodded. Kyoto was indeed one of the most knowledgeable existences in the myriad worlds. He had actually guessed that it was the goddess of life just by hearing him say that. As far as I know, using this resurrection altar seems to require extremely rare faith nerves to use. Could it be that Your Majesty wants to use a huge amount of faith nerves to revive these fallen soldiers? Kyoto asked. Of course. Zhou nodded. They are all this Emperor's soldiers. How can this Emperor watch them die? Your Excellency Kyoto, you've just arrived in the Blazing Sun Empire, so you might not be aware of it. Our soldiers have always been like this. If they die, they'll be resurrected. This kind of thing has been happening for a long time. Among the soldiers under this Emperor, there are many talented people who have died dozens or hundreds of times. Currently, they are all still alive and well. Many soldiers have even become god spirits in this kind of life and death tempering. It's precisely because of this resurrection method that this Emperor has maintained a zero mortality rate in the war for a long time. At the end, Zhou's expression was rather arrogant. He rarely showed such an expression to outsiders. However, when it came to the zero mortality rate in war, he was rather pleased with himself. This was indeed something to be proud of. A lord like him who could maintain a zero mortality rate was probably unprecedented. There shouldn't be anyone like him in the future. After Kyoto heard Zhou's words, a hint of shock finally appeared on his usually calm and indifferent expression. The zero mortality rate of war that had been maintained for a long time? Let alone hearing about such a thing. He didn't even dare to think about it. Among all the lord factions he knew, there was no lord faction that could create a record of 0 deaths in war because this was simply an impossible record. How could no one die in a war? This was common knowledge that all the lords knew. Even the goddess of life and the master god tier of death, who controlled the 2 laws of life and death, would definitely not be able to do such a thing. The lord in front of him, no, the common people's regal, had done it. After a long silence, he suddenly had a flash of light in his eyes. He slowly asked, "Then, doesn't that mean that the subjects in His Majesty's territory have never experienced the tragedy of a broken family because of war?" "That's true," Zhou said with a faint smile, as though this was an extremely ordinary matter for him. Furthermore, because our army has a good reputation, good treatment, and a sense of security and honor, countless subjects in the country are crazy about joining the army. Even women, children, and the elderly, these subjects who are not suitable to participate in the war, want to join the army and fight for our Blazing Sun Empire. To our enemies, combat is an incomparably terrifying nightmare. But to our subjects, war? They are never afraid. They even want to participate enthusiastically. Then did they join? Kyoto asked. The smile on Zhou's face gradually faded. He said indifferently, The young men of the Blazing Sun Empire aren't dead yet. It's not their turn to join. War is ultimately a bad thing. Our Blazing Sun Empire is just a special example. The living beings in other places in the myriad worlds are still in deep trouble because of the war. One day, this emperor hopes that this emperor can personally end this war. When he stated this last sentence, Zhou's voice was very low, as if he was talking to himself. Then what will happen to His Majesty's undead army after this war that affects the myriad worlds ends? Kyoto seemed to have sensed something and asked, "If the myriad worlds really welcome peace, I will disband the soldiers under my command, or even disband my empire." A smile appeared on Zhou's face. He seemed to have thought of this long ago. "I will give my soldiers, generals, heroes, and god spirits sufficient pensions and guarantees. Then I will let them do whatever they want. Yes, the premise is that they don't harm the world. In short, if the combat ends, they should welcome their own lives and not follow me as their master and continue to do things for me. They should have their own lives, their own dreams, their own families, their own lives. It's not like now, where we're forced into the maelstrom of war. As for me, I'll live with my wife, play games with Zhou Qingmin, travel around the world with Wu Tu, see all kinds of customs in the myriad worlds and many other things. That will definitely be very interesting." Kyoto looked at Zhou, who was smiling to himself, and could not help but be stunned. After a long time, only then did he come back to his senses. After thinking for a long time, he opened the wordless book in his hand and wrote these lines of words on the first page. Preface by editor. The common people's regal is the strongest, most handsome, most special, and strangest lord I've ever seen. He doesn't like war, but he has become the king of war of the new era. He loves his wife, but he rarely meets his wife. While he likes to play games, he rarely touches them on weekdays, and yet he has a huge virtual game empire under his command. He wants to see the customs of all the races in the world, but he stays in his imperial capital every day, guarding his subjects and territory. He has everything that other living beings envy, but it also seems to be very far away from what he has. This common people's regal has stirred up endless killings. It's normal for he to be exterminated, but in his country, it's a piece of peace and prosperity. Everyone seems to live in a paradise. He hopes to end this endless combat between worlds. This wish was something that those high and mighty old lord factions couldn't achieve even after scheming for countless years. However, this human lord who had been in the high continent for less than a year, had stated it firmly. What does he seem to be carrying? Perhaps it's his desire, or the responsibility of an emperor, or the innocent gaze of an innocent child oppressed by combat by the roadside, or perhaps something else. I, the Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, will record all of this with the brush of time and present it to myself and the readers. Kyoto closed the book after he finished writing the editor's introduction. What followed was the main text. He had to think carefully before writing. He looked up at Zhou with a faint smile. He was getting more and more interested in this common people's regal who had a close relationship with the dragons. He was just being entrusted by a good friend to help him write an autobiography for common people's regal before he arrived. Now, he really wanted to see the future of this existence. Could such a human regal, who was filled with childish dreams, really do what he wanted to do and become the person he wanted to do? The Time Divine Dragon was interested to know. Actually, whether it was childish or not depended on the facts. If someone said it but couldn't achieve it, then one could be said to be childish. However, if someone not only said it out loud, but also did it, then no matter how naive and unbelievable this matter was, that person would be looked up to. However, Kyoto didn't forget his business. Your Majesty, I can actually contribute to the resurrecting of the soldiers. Kyoto pointed at the corpses of the dead soldiers and said with a smile, "This emperor would naturally be more than happy if your excellency can make a move." Zhou was stunned for a moment before smiling. Naturally, he trusted His Excellency's words. According to the records of the dragon bloodline in his body, it was said that he had even done a magnificent feat of reviving a legendary dragon. In terms of resurrection ability, he was not much inferior to the two master god tiers of life and death. Kyoto nodded and flew above the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire and Cosmos Emperor. When Zhou saw this, he also ordered the soldiers who were carrying the corpses to put them down. The soldiers immediately put down the corpses of their comrades and waited for further orders. Kyoto could not help but praise in his heart when he saw this. What a disciplined army! Then, his expression turned serious as he silently chanted a spell. A miraculous river that reflected countless space-time phantoms and spanned the space-time of various worlds quietly reappeared from space as a low, complicated, and mysterious incantation was being chanted by Kyoto. Surrounding this magnificent river was a boundless red floating continent. Long river of time and space, eternal mainland, legendary tier space-time divine dragon was born in the long river of time and space. It should be true. Zhou muttered to himself when he saw this scene. Speaking of which, after the river of time and space and the eternal continent appeared, the river of time and space began to flow slowly in the eternal continent, as if what Kyoto summoned was not a phantom but a real existence. At this moment, the incantation in Kyoto's mouth suddenly became hurried and high. The next second, something that shocked countless life forms happened. The river of time and space actually began to flow back slowly under Kyoto's incantation. Even though it only flowed in reverse for a moment, it still produced a large amount of power of time and space at that moment. This power of time and space descended within a radius of billions of kilometers of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Within this range of billions of kilometers, all the dead soldiers were resurrected in the blink of an eye. The injuries on the injured soldiers quickly reversed until their injuries disappeared. Even the terrain that had been changed because of the war and the buildings that had been destroyed were reversed in time and quickly returned to normal. Moreover, the power of time and space had a selective recovery. For example, the Scarlet soldiers killed by the Blazing Sun Empire soldiers did not recover with the flow of time. They were still in a state of death. Seeing that everything had recovered, Kyoto chuckled and stopped casting. Then, he said to Zhou, "I hope your majesty is satisfied." "I'm satisfied. I can't be more satisfied." Zhou looked at Kyoto in surprise. This time reversal not only revived his soldiers, but also restored all the buildings damaged by the war. Now, they could directly send residents and professionals to the capital of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. They didn't even need to do any repair work. This saved them a lot of trouble. It had to be known that, for the victors of the war, restoring the damaged city facilities after the war was the most troublesome and expensive thing. Even Zhou was no exception. He didn't care about spending money. What he cared about was that repairing the damaged city's facilities would consume some manpower and time. Now that the space-time divine dragon was here, this problem did not exist. He secretly sized up Your Excellency Kyoto and realized that he didn't seem to have expended any energy at all after using this time reversal. Zhou clicked his tongue. This Your Excellency's attainments in the law of time were much more terrifying than he had imagined. Your Excellency, how many times can you use such an extended nomological skill in a day? Zhou asked. It's just going against the flow of moment within a radius of billions of miles. For me, I can use it however many times I want in a day. Kyoto smiled faintly and said, I can reverse time in a boundless universe at best. To me, it's very easy to use this small time reversal dozens or hundreds of times a day. Your Majesty, don't worry. He was being humble. One of the things he often did was also his greatest ability was to travel through various timelines and even restart the entire world's timeline to reach the time point he wanted. Even though the worlds where those timelines were located were all subsidiary small universes that were attached to the supreme great cosmos and could produce countless lives and deaths in the moment frame of a thought, it was still an astonishing method that many true god tier were far from being capable to do. That's great, Zhou uttered with a smile. In that case, Your Excellency, please follow the army and use this time reversal law skill after the war. This law skill is very significant to our Blazing Sun Empire. I'm already your Majesty's subject. Your Majesty, you don't have to be so polite. Just give me your orders. Kyoto chuckled. He naturally did not forget that although this humble common people's regal in front of him was young, he already had the combat power of a Lord God tier that was comparable to him. Once the two of them fought, even if he had many means, he might not dare say that he would definitely win. Coupled with his current identity as Zhou subject, he truly treated Zhou as his majesty. Zhou understood Kyoto's meaning. He thought for a moment and nodded. After a while, after cleaning up the battlefield, Zhou thought for a moment. In order to let the Lords of the Star Alliance use their insight defection as rapidly as possible, he simply divided the 6 trillion plus troops into more than 300 groups. He let the Lords of the Star Alliance each lead more than 2 trillion soldiers and their own troops to the enemy forces around the Blazing Sun Empire's territory to carry out a separate insight defection. This way, he should be capable to use his insight defection in the shortest moment possible. When Zhou thought of this, he immediately sent troops to convey his thoughts. In a short while, the Blazing Sun Empire's army split into more than 300 troops and headed to the various borders to oppose the Lords. This method was indeed extremely efficient. In less than an hour, all the Star Alliance masters successfully instigated the insight defection and returned with the soldiers. After some calculations, they had brought back about 120 billion Scarlet soldiers, 625 God spirits, and 12 true God tiers. The benefits this time could be said to be far inferior to the insight defection results obtained by the Scarlet Army that had previously instigated Aus. However, Zhou was not surprised. How could the scattered soldiers around the Blazing Sun Empire compare to Aus's Scarlet Alliance army? Moreover, the Scarlet Alliance army that he had just defeated was the vast majority of the troops that they had gathered. After sending out these troops, there weren't many left in their respective countries. It was already beyond his expectations that he could instigate insight defection to gather so many Scarlet soldiers and Scarlet God spirits. It was already late at night. Although Zhou's army was no longer afraid of the Scarlet Fog at night due to the Lord talent of the Scarlet natural enemy, in order to let the soldiers rest and adjust, Zhou still brought them back to the Blazing Sun Empire to continue the battle tomorrow. In the Blazing Sun Imperial capital, after Zhou returned, he immediately went to the shrine and turned his attention to Zhou fight on Cerulean planet. Then, he learned that after Zhou fight conquered True God Heron and the Lords of the Wind Spirit race, he conquered 3 True God tier Lord factions and a total of 112 Lord factions. He obtained a total of 310,600,000 hegemony points and 154,200 obscure Lord shop points. The 3 True God tier Lord factions that had the protection of True Gods contributed the most hegemony points. The 3 True God tier Lord factions alone contributed a total of 300 million hegemony points. The remaining 106,000 hegemony points were contributed by the Lords of the myriad races. As for the obscure Lord shop points, all the factions contributed similarly. It could be seen that the hidden shop points did not value the strength of the enemy faction that they conquered. What they valued more was the number of enemies they conquered. In the following period of time, Zhou fight and the rest did not plan to rest either. Instead, they prepared to continue attacking all the surrounding Lord factions. This was because the active universe that Zhou fight was in was a new super-large boundless universe created by the Supreme Will. For the time being, there was no threat of the Scarlet Fog. Therefore, be it Zhou fight or the Lords of the other races, they would obviously not let go of this good opportunity to develop at night. The other lords who should fight for the first stage of the Lord of the race continued to fight for this position. Zhou fight naturally took advantage of this time to continue to conquer the enemy forces and accumulate hegemony points and obscure Lord shop points. Zhou naturally agreed to Zhou fight's idea. Then, he chatted with Zhou for a while. He mainly wanted Zhou fight to pay attention to collecting space-time elemental gems, so that the Blazing Sun Empire on the High Continent could advance. Then, he cut off the connection. Following that, Zhou entered the world of Reincarnation and continued to comprehend the Lord's laws. He had to raise his strength to the true God tier level as soon as possible. At that time, Zhou's personal strength would undergo a qualitative change. Even without using the power of the Moon Demon or the power Heavenly Emperor, he could rely on his law skill, King, to possess true Master God-tier combat strength. In addition, the power Heavenly Emperor, the Supreme Sacred Body, the Master God-tier Divine Artifact, and many other aspects had enhanced his strength. When the time came, he was even confident that he would not be defeated by the 10 Master God-tier existences. Time flew by. Words soon appeared. They arrived the next day. In the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Zhou opened his eyes. He sensed his supreme sacred body and frowned slightly. After exhausting all the Lord Talent crystal fragments and Lord Talent spheres, the progress of upgrading the intermediate True God-tier Supreme Sacred Body to an advanced True God-tier Supreme Sacred Body has only increased by half. Looks like I still need 2 days to raise the Supreme Sacred Body to the level of a True God-tier advanced grade. I really hope to reach the low-level Master God-tier Supreme Sacred Body as soon as possible. When the time comes, I should be invincible among Master God-tier. Even if the 10 Master God-tiers attack me together, they won't be able to do anything to me. Zhou was filled with anticipation. Then, he looked at the new Lord Talent that he had awakened during his cultivation. As expected, it was also the mythical Tier 1 and only Lord Talent. Lord Talent, God of Agriculture, Shinon's Blessing, Mythical Tier, Unique. Talent Effect 1, Blessing of the God of Agriculture. Your territory is blessed by the God of Agriculture, Nongxi. In your territory, the production of all crops will increase by 10,000%. All agricultural lifestyle professionals can obtain promotion energy by planting and harvesting crops. The promotion energy obtained will also increase by 10,000%. Talent Effect 2, God-tier Cultivation. The agricultural lifestyle professionals in your territory have a 5% chance of cultivating crops with +1 quality when cultivating agricultural crops. There is a 1% chance of cultivating crops with +1 quality and benign mutations. Talent Effect 3, Son of Agriculture. When you and the agricultural lifestyle professionals under you reach the limit of your potential, you can break through the limit of your potential and reach a new profession realm by focusing on agricultural theory and practical knowledge. Talent Effect 4, Food is the priority of the people. Any living being who eats the crops produced in your territory will experience the feeling of happiness from it, greatly increasing the probability of them eating it multiple times. Specific Talent Effect 5, Master God's Protection. The development process of your Lord's faction will not be hindered by other Master God-level powerhouses. The Machina God, 0, will secretly protect you and your Lord's faction, stopping or killing any Master God-level powerhouses who dare to come and have malicious intentions. Specific Talent Effect 6, Protector of the Divine Kingdom. When your Lord's faction advances to the beginner-level Divine Kingdom, the God of Agriculture, Shinon, will automatically join your Lord's faction and become a loyal worshipper of your Master God tier. However, you have to promise him that you will let he join the battlefield as little as possible and have your own time to study the upper limit of agricultural development. After reading it, Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he muttered to himself in puzzlement. I don't remember the God of Agriculture, Shinon, being one of the 10 Master Gods. Even though the God of Agriculture, Shinon, is also a high-level Master God, and is also a God blessed by the heavens, he is considered to be the weakest among all the Master God tier advanced grade God spirits. He can't join the ranks of the top 10 Master Gods at all. In addition, this God of Agriculture's requirements are low enough. He only wants to join the battlefield as little as possible and give him moment to study the upper limit of agricultural development. He doesn't want to advance to the supreme God realm at all. As he who possessed many bloodline inheritances, he naturally knew who the 10 Master God tiers were. They were the War Master God Terrence, the Machina Master God, 0, the God of Death, Thanatos, the Goddess of Life, Tritis, the Wisdom Master God, Tot-Birth, the Master God of Light, Hilu, the original Master God tier Source, the Primordial Dragon, First Venerable, the king of all gods Di Huang, the chaotic beast god, heaven-cursed beast. There was no god of agriculture, Shinan, among them. Wait, there's indeed no prefix of the 10 sacred blessings in the prefix of this Lord Talent name. Could there be other Lord Talents? Other than the 10 god series of Lord Talents that possess other god spirits' blessings? Zhou had a guess. He thought for a moment and guessed that he became right. This became because when he was looking at the Lord Talent list of the Star Alliance Masters, he had indeed seen some Lord Talents that were blessed by god spirits. However, most of their grades were black iron tier, green bronze tier, and white silver tier. They did not even have the yellow gold tier Lord Talent. In addition, their talent effects were very ordinary, so Zhou subconsciously ignored them. Only today, when he noticed this mythical tier unique Lord Talent, did he remember. Zhou did not hesitate. Just as he became about to leave the Reincarnation Sacred Palace to recruit new soldiers, Nadia arrived up and told he a piece of news. The Blood Moon Sun became back. The Blazing Sun Empire Imperial Palace. Zhou sat on the throne and looked at the Blood Moon Sun below with a faint smile. What have you been doing these past few days? Did you learn anything? Your Majesty, I haven't found the opportunity to restore my Master God tier strength yet. However, I accidentally bumped into a few Titan True God tiers, so I took care of them along the way. It can be considered as repaying some of the interest that the Titans owe me. The Blood Moon Sun shook his head and said. Zhou smiled. Even the Titan God race would find it troublesome to be targeted by a main God-level expert whose strength had fallen to the True God tier realm. When the Blood Moon Sun recovered to the level of a Master God tier one day, even the Titan God race would have to take the Blood Moon Sun seriously. A Master God-level expert could be considered a top-notch expert even in the Titan God race after all. Any top bloodline race would not dare to underestimate such an expert. Have you considered the message this emperor sent you previously? Even though Zhou had already guessed the answer to this question, he still had to go through the process of asking. Your Excellency Regal is willing to look up to the Blood Moon Sun and doesn't mind his troubles. The Blood Moon Sun is more than grateful to Your Excellency for taking him in, so why would he refuse? Blood Moon Sun greets Your Majesty. The Blood Moon Sun said respectfully. You have to think carefully. The only enemy you're facing now is the Titan God race. But if you join this Emperor's camp, the original Spirit race, the Shepherd's God race, the Chaos Gods race, and other top bloodline races will all view you as an enemy. At that time, you will only be in more trouble. Zhou smiled at the Blood Moon Sun. I actually feel that there's not much difference between offending one Titan God race and offending more top-notch bloodline races. Most importantly, I feel that Your Majesty's Blazing Sun Empire is worth joining. Your Majesty is also worthy of my loyalty. That's why I want to join. I didn't have to. In addition, many races now think that a new era is about to begin because of His Majesty's appearance. Perhaps in the future, those top bloodline races will be wiped out by His Majesty. Speaking of which, Your Majesty, you also know that I was killed by a top bloodline race like the Titan God race back then. Actually, I've long been unhappy with those high and mighty races who think that they're the masters of the endless heavens. If Your Majesty really intends to destroy those top bloodline races, especially when it comes to the Titan God race, I'm willing to do my best to be Your Majesty's vanguard. The Blood Moon Sun said seriously. His tone contained astonishing resentment. It could be seen that he hated the Titan God race, who had killed he until he only had a remnant of his will. Okay. This emperor agrees to your request. Zhou stood up from his throne and agreed to the Blood Moon Sun with a smile. After what happened between Uriel and Yuzanda, Zhou knew that there was basically no possibility of reconciliation between him and the Titan God race. Either him or Zhou would survive. Since that was the case, naturally Zhou would not choose to die himself. Then, he could only ask the threat of the Titan God race to disappear from the forest of races after he completely rose. From now on, you will be this emperor's first worshipped quasi-master god tier. All of your treatment is the same as that of a worshipped master god. It's just that there's the word quasi in your rank. After you completely recover your Master God tier strength, you can remove this quasi-word and become the true worshipped Master God of the Blazing Sun Empire. Zhou asked. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Blood Moon Sun was moved and said excitedly. He never expected that His Excellency, the common people's regal, would be ready to treat him as a worshipped Master God before he even regained his powers. How much trust did he have in him? At this moment, the Blood Moon Sun felt ashamed of the bad guess he had made about Zhou's intention of inviting him over. According to tradition, if a worshipped true god joins our country, this emperor will give them a true god-tier divine artifact and lend them 5 true god-tier divine artifacts from other positions. You are the first quasi-worshipped master god in our country. Even though you currently have the power of a top true god tier, this emperor also intends to give you a master god tier divine artifact. This way, when you recover your master god tier strength in the future, you can use it directly. Take a look. After Zhou finished speaking, a world ring appeared in front of the Blood Moon Sun with a thought. The Blood Moon Sun did not take it immediately but looked at Zhou in a daze. What did he just hear? His Majesty was going to give him Master God-tier divine artifacts. His Majesty must be joking, right? Master God-tier divine artifacts. The vast majority of Master God-tiers did not possess a single Master God-tier divine artifact. Even the premier Master God-tier existences like the 10 Master God-tiers only had 1 or 2 Master God-tier divine artifacts on them at most. Then, they would use them together with true God-tier divine artifacts. The vast majority of Master God-tiers did not possess a single Master God-tier divine artifact. Even the premier Master God-tier existences like the 10 Master God-tiers only had 1 or 2 Master God-tier divine artifacts on them at most. Then, they would use them together with true God-tier divine artifacts. His Majesty actually spoke that he would give such a divine artifact to him. He was stunned for a while before he came back to his senses. He received the ring with a trembling hand and looked inside. Then, he was stunned. This was because this world ring was actually a boundless universe-level world ring. In this world ring were 7 divine artifacts. 6 of them were true divine artifacts that could form a set of divine artifacts. What surprised him was that the attributes of these 6 true God-tier divine artifacts happened to be Ein-type true God-tier divine artifacts. They were extremely compatible with his Law of the Moon. It could be spoke that as long as he wore these 6 true God-tier divine artifacts that matched his own law attributes, his combat power would instantly soar by more than 100 times, and he would become the top true God-tier existence among the advanced grade god spirits of true gods. That's not the point. The main point was the divine artifact that was surrounded by the 6 true God-tier divine artifacts. It exuded a Master God-tier divine artifact level pressure that suppressed the surrounding 6 true God-tier divine artifacts, causing them to tremble. He looked like a real great lunar star. It was even slowly changing, from a full moon that emitted a resplendent light to a crescent moon that converged all the light. From bright to dark, from dark to bright, it formed a cycle. A majestic aura of laws emanated from its body. The Blood Moon Sun could not help but hold his breath when he saw the moon. His eyes were filled with shock. Master God-tier divine artifact. It really is a Master God-tier divine artifact. Even the 10 great Master God-tier existences would go crazy over such a Master God-tier divine artifact, right? The Blood Moon Sun muttered. He still did not know that the common people's regal in front of him had just sent 3 of the 10 Master God-tier existences several Master God-tier divine artifacts not long ago, allowing them to return with a full harvest. Compared to the Master God-tier advanced grade Master God divine artifact they had obtained, the Master God-tier elementary grade divine artifact in front of him, the illusory moon sacred ring, was actually only pretty ordinary. However, it was also this ordinary divine artifact that gave the Blood Moon Sun a huge shock. Your Majesty, is this really for me? The Blood Moon Sun could not believe it and was still doubting reality. It's in your hands. Why don't you believe me? Zhou smiled and said, however, you can't use this Master God-tier divine artifact yet. Leave it in the world rings for now. When you recover your strength and can use it again, you can take it out. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhou smiled and said, however, you can't use this Master God Tier Divine artifact yet. Leave it in the world rings for now. When you recover your strength and can use it again, you can take it out. A text notification that the Blood Moon Sun's loyalty had skyrocketed appeared in front of Zhou. However, he was used to it and no longer cared. By the way, tell this Emperor what divine medicine you need to recover your strength. Zhou turned to ask this question. Okay. When the Blood Moon Sun heard this, he did not hide anything and told him all the divine medicines he needed. He even mentioned some low-level and high-level substitutes. After saying that, he hesitated for a moment. If I don't use the divine herbs at the true God tier level, I can use the high-level divine herbs at the Master God tier level to replace them. Coupled with an array formation that has 10 times the speed of time, I can recover my full strength in 7 days. A substitute for a Master God tier high-level divine medicine, right? Zhou thought for a moment and opened his king's treasure box to take a look. Now, his king's treasure box could be considered a true king's treasure box. Countless treasures piled up like mountains were stored in the huge deathly demiplane. It even felt like it was overflowing. The weakest among them were special-grade treasures, and the most common ones were true God-tier treasures. Even the smallest number of Master God-tier treasures could be described as a vast amount. As for treasures below the high-tier deity level, they weren't even qualified to enter his king's treasury. Zhou picked and chose. From the treasures at the Master God tier level, he easily found the 7 divine herbs that the Blood Moon Sun needed. These 7 divine herbs were not even unique. With the enhancement of the Lord talent and title, there were hundreds of each divine herb. Zhou casually put them into a Master God tier world rings and prepared to hand them to the Blood Moon Sun. As for why they had to use Master God tier world rings, it was mainly because only spatial items of this level could store Master God tier treasures. Otherwise, if they were to exchange for true God tier or even lower level world rings and forcefully put in Master God tier items, this world ring would explode in minutes. Then, he looked at the sea of treasures that was about to fill the entire half-plane and could not help but fall into deep thought. Speaking of which, my king's treasure box seems a little small. I hope that the next time the Supreme Sacred Body awakens a new mythical tier 1 Lord talent, other than the Lord talent of the 10 Gods series, it will help me upgrade the king's treasure box. Zhou muttered in his heart. Not only would the Supreme Sacred Body change according to the environment, the corresponding Lord talent would also be produced according to the needs of the owner of the Supreme Sacred Body. Therefore, even though Zhou seemed to be talking to himself, he was actually discussing his needs with the Supreme Sacred Body. Then, his consciousness returned to the present world. He then threw the world ring containing the divine medicine to the Blood Moon Sun. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Blood Moon Sun caught it respectfully and entered it with his consciousness. The first thing he saw was the Master God tier divine medicine. The Blood Moon Sun was dumbfounded. They were really giving Master God tier level divine medicine. Were Master God tier treasures so common in this world? He looked at His Majesty in disbelief. What kind of existence was His Majesty? How could he casually take out so many Master God tier treasures? Could it be that on the surface, His Majesty was a lord of all races, but in reality, he was a certain supreme god realm or even a will existence who had come to the lower realm to play? When Zhou saw that the Blood Moon Sun still wanted to say something, he waved his hand. You can leave first and recover your strength. When you recover your strength, it won't be too late to fight with me. Yes, the Blood Moon Sun opened his mouth, but in the end, he left with a stomach full of shock and guesses. After the Blood Moon Sun left, Zhou flew out of the palace and came to Mugu, waiting for Wu Xian to come out. After chatting for a while, a golden stream of light flew out of the Scarlet Broodmother and landed in front of Zhou. The Legion Commander of the Homeland Defense Army, Wu Xian, greets His Majesty. MHM. Zhou nodded. Is everything settled? Your Majesty, please take a look, Wu Xian said. Then, He unveiled his palm and saw 3 rings lying quietly on his palm. Zhou took a look and nodded. Then, he took the 2 world rings containing the loots and recruitment books and left the last one for Wu Xian. This emperor will go to the gate of summoning to recruit new recruits. Go to the recruit team and use the 240 trillion class change certificates. Zhou asked. Yes, your majesty, Wu Xian said respectfully. When Zhou saw this, he turned into a stream of light and left. Wu Xian followed closely behind. In front of the gate of summoning, Zhou communicated with the world rings in his hand and threw all 240 trillion recruitment books into the gate of summoning. Then, he spent 100 mid-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine crystals to summon 240 trillion new recruits in one go. After getting 0 to arrange these new recruits, Zhou began to summon normally again. In the end, he summoned a total of 22,123,655 people, including 11 god spirits. He summoned 468,655 more people than usual. After getting the staff to arrange for these new subjects, Zhou took a deep breath and began to summon the original dragon abyss. Words soon appeared. 66,666,666 pure-blooded dragons instantly appeared on Cosmos Emperor as a dark purple light lit up in the gate of summoning. From the green bronze-tier elementary grade fire dragon to the mid-tier deity-level intermediate sacred fire dragon god, as well as various other pure-blooded dragons, they could be said to have everything. However, after Zhou looked around, his expression turned regretful. This was because he didn't see the legendary dragons. What a pity. There's a 10% chance that we didn't encounter it. Zhou shook his head. Could it be that the first time he summoned the Time Divine Dragon was a benefit for newcomers? Zhou didn't think too much about not summoning the legendary dragon. After sensing regretful for a while, he didn't care anymore. He then arrived to the Lord shop to see what the goods were like. In the end, the goods today were so-so. Zhou took a look and lost interest. The products these few days are not good, old Zhou. Zhou could not help but complain. Your Majesty, your standards are too high. Zhou Chengmin smiled bitterly, helpless against His Majesty's complaints. The Lord shop was gradually unable to satisfy his needs as this Lord's level increased. Zhou was stunned. Then he shook his head helplessly. Well, to the current him, as long as one was at the true God tier or below, they could be considered average. Only Master God tier or Supreme God realm treasures could catch his eye, even though the Lord shop was the only mythical tier Lord talent. His upper limit was only the Master God tier. Zhou was no longer in short supply of goods at this level. I have to quickly create a Master God tier Lord talent. I can't stop cultivating the supreme sacred body. Zhou murmured to himself as he casually purchased these 3 items. Even though he wasn't interested, he was already here. At this moment, a call suddenly appeared on Zhou's personal terminal. Zhou was stunned. He took a look and realized that it was from Collier. He selected up the call.